Welcome to the Promasys webinar series and to today's special topic on compliance made easy. I am Wolf Ondracek, Senior Vice President Academic and Asian Markets at Omnicom Systems Incorporated and Managing Director of Omnicom subsidiary in Leiden, the Netherlands. Being compliant with clinical trial rules and regulations is not always at the top of the list of researchers and investigators, or of the organization to which they belong. When researchers are involved in industry-sponsored studies, compliance is taken care of by the sponsor or the contract research organization that runs the study. But in the case of investigator-initiated trials, the researchers often struggle with ensuring a sufficient level of compliance. The organization to which the researcher belongs very often does not provide the infrastructure or support system to help researchers run their trials in a compliant way. In effect, this puts the burden of compliance on the shoulder of the investigator, who's always facing the challenge of limited resources. Whenever compliance with the regulations is not sufficiently ensured, the investigator and his or her organization are vulnerable to criticism and serious findings by inspectors, which can potentially lead to negative publicity and even measures such as the study being stopped. In addition, and this is very important for academic researchers, the international scientific journals, when reviewing articles that have been submitted for publication, increasingly require that authors can demonstrate that the data on which their article is based come from clinical trials that have been conducted in compliance not only with international data standards, but also with clinical trials, rules and regulations. Now, the good news is that our clinical data management and EDC solution, Promasys, which is developed over more than 25 years on the work floor of clinical trials in close interaction with researchers and trial professionals, that Promasys helps its users and their organization to be compliant with GCP, with FDA 21 CFR Part 11, and with HIPAA and similar privacy regulations. Many components of Promasys, such as the robust yet flexible access control system, in combination with Promasys' unique quality model, the study lifecycle, with the audit trail that works throughout the system, and the electronic signature functionality, all work together to take away the burden of worrying about compliance from the individual user. Now, let's take a closer look at these important components of the system. First, the set and forget access control system. Setting up and managing the user accounts is a central role in Promasys, typically set up at initial configuration of the system. You can define for each user whether he or she can log in into Promasys with the core, this is the Windows client, with the WebCRF, this is Promasys web-based EDC module, or with the Promasys iPad app, our mobile EDC module, and any combination of these login methods. User accounts are efficiently managed through group membership. Any number of groups can be created, where a group typically reflects a role or partial role in the clinical trial organization, such as the group data entry or principal investigator or monitor, for instance. Individual users can be made member of one or more groups. Also, special rights can be associated with a group, such as the right to raise queries or to answer queries, or the right to sign data for review or for approval. Promasys access control system allows you to set up the access rights in a very granular way. And this is typically something that we help our users with during the initial configuration and implementation of the system. Once set up properly, you no longer need to worry about the required access level of the users to the clinical trial data and patient information. That is because the access control system works together with Promasys' unique quality module, the study lifecycle. The study lifecycle is a unique quality concept developed in Promasys. We also call it our quality and compliance engine. The study lifecycle divides a trial in a number of well-defined phases or stages. Moving a study from one phase to the next is centrally controlled in a module that can be only accessed by users with the appropriate access level. The phases of the study lifecycle follow the normal flow of a study, and the required access levels are automatically adjusted to the particular phase a study is in. Let's take a closer look. Here you see an overview of the phases of the study lifecycle, starting with the DEF, DEF, or definition phase, through the approval phase, the execution phase, the data completion phase, the analysis phase, and finally to the finalization and the end phase. During the definition phase, the users who have the proper access rights to do this can build the study. They define the building blocks of the trial, the data items, including their attributes such as data type, format, unit, limits and ranges, etc. They define the visit and set up the schedule of visits. And they define the edit checks, which, by the way, in Promasys does not require any programming. Again, when the study is in the definition phase, only the users with appropriate access rights can perform these actions. Once the study definition is complete, the person who is responsible for moving a trial through the study lifecycle can promote the study to the next phase, the approval phase. During this phase, the study design is frozen and nobody can make any changes. During this phase, typically internal approval or UAT is conducted. Or maybe you are waiting for external approval by an ethics committee or the competent authority. If, as a result of these reviews, no changes to the design are required, the study can move on to the next phase, the clinical phase or execution phase. Once the study is in execution, for the first time, subjects or patients can be recruited into the study, and we can start collecting and entering data. In Promasys, every trial starts with a screening or baseline visit. If the patient has completed the screening and complies with the in- and exclusion criteria, he or she can be included in the study. In Promasys, you can define the in- and exclusion criteria as rules that automatically check whether a subject, based on the related screening values, can be included in the trial. This functionality in itself is an important contribution to the overall high level of quality and compliance in Promasys. Now, what is relevant for the topic of automatic adjustment of the required access level to the phase of the study lifecycle that a trial is in? The user who, based on his access rights in the definition phase, could define the data items and the visit schedules, etc., in the execution phase no longer can make any changes to the design of the study. No need to change the role of this user in Promasys. It automatically adjusts to the study lifecycle phase. And if during the execution phase it is necessary to make a change in the design, for instance because of a protocol amendment, this can only be done by a user with the required special higher access level. When recruitment is completed and the last patient entered the study moves to the DAT, the data completion phase. No new subjects or patients can be enrolled in the study, but some data entry still continues. The bulk of data entry, of course, takes place during the execution phase, but still data may be coming in, for instance from various labs. After all the data has been collected, the study moves to the analysis phase. All data are logged, and for double-blind studies, the treatment becomes visible. Data, and in the analysis phase also unblinded data, can be exported into various formats, including SAS and Excel, and SDTM datasets can be created. In addition, for each patient, submission-ready casebooks can be generated. The analysis phase is followed by the finalization phase that allows to do some administrative wrap-up of the study. And finally, the study reaches the end phase. The study is no longer active, no longer appears in various overviews and modules, and all the study data are frozen. However, the study and the study data remain accessible in read-only mode at all times, that is, for users, of course, who have a sufficient access level. We have seen how Promasys access control system, together with the automatic working of the study lifecycle, ensure that certain actions can only be performed by users with the correct access rights. This is extremely important functionality that protects the integrity of the data. But there is another important component of data integrity, and that is the audit trail that tracks the exact history of each individual data item. Promasys system-generated audit trail records for each data item when a value was entered, date and time, and who entered the value, which user. And it does this, of course, also for each subsequent change to a value. But it also shows for each data item when it was created during the study build process, date and time, and by whom. And of course, this is also the case for any changes to the design of the data item that were made later on. And Promasys does not only track the history of the data items, it does this, technically speaking, for each record in the database. That is, you can see the history of each subject or patient and of each visit inside Promasys. And also you can look at the audit trail on the study or protocol level, and for instance see which user at what date and time moved the study from one study lifecycle phase to another. The audit trail information is available through various audit trail reports, but the history of data items is also visible in each of the interfaces, like the WebCRF. Remember, this is our web-based EDC module, or the Promasys iPad app. Here you can see the same data item, diastolic blood pressure of patient CTS001 in study ENNN 7.0, changed by user system from 120 to 80 on 17 February 2015 at 16 hours, 8 minutes and 1 second. Always, at any time, and in any of the Promasys modules or interfaces, you can see who did what at which date and time. That brings us to the last component of Promasys compliance support system, electronic signatures. Data can be signed electronically in compliance with 21 CFR Party level. Promasys has two signature levels, review and approval. Signing off for review is typically a right that you want to give to a monitor or a data manager, whereas the right to sign for approval, of course, belongs to the principal investigator. Promasys makes a distinction between normal data items, adverse events, and concomitant medication data, so you can separate the right to sign off for each of these three categories. Data items can be signed individually or in batch on the form level, the visit level, or the patient level, which is the highest level for signing in batch. And signing can be done, of course, in each of the interfaces, including the WebCRF and the Promasys iPad app. This brings us to the end of this short webinar on Compliance Made Easy. I hope you enjoyed my talk and found it informative, and if you want to learn more about Promasys, please visit www.omnicom.com/Promasys. Thank you for your attention.